Two Peas in a Bong. It's your boy KP. Um, how many of y'all have been watching NCAA men's college basketball? Um, some of the conference tournaments have started. Some of the regular season was wrapping up. We saw some of the rivals play in the Big Ten. You saw Michigan, Michigan State. You saw Iowa, Nebraska. There were some teams in what is it? The Atlantic Coastal Conference, I believe. No, not the ACC. The Atlantic or something like that conference with Memphis and Tulane playing. South Florida was playing. So they're kind of wrapping up their season. So people are wrapping up their season, or they were starting conference tournament play to try to see who's going to get into the dance this year. So in that, there are a few conferences that have wrapped up their tournament play and they've stamped their tickets. Long Island University, shout out to Rod Strickland, got his team in. They got in as soon as they got to the finals because the team that they were playing against wasn't eligible to make it into the tournament because they had just became a Division I team. So Long Island University, they had already made it in, but congratulations to Rod Strickland. um, Tennessee State in the Ohio Valley Conference. They stamped their ticket. And Long Island University is representing the Northeast Conference. You had Queens in North Carolina. They won today. They represent the ASUN Conference. You had High Point win today. They're representing the Big South. I believe they went last year as well. So shout out to them. And then you had Northern Iowa that won as well. So they stamped their ticket to get into the NCAA tournament. Few things I want to talk about though is so most people don't know it's 31 conferences, right? And out of these 31 conferences in men's college basketball, I believe this year it's going to be 8 conferences. Yeah, I'm going to go with 8 conferences that get multiple teams. So this is turning into a thing where, you got these Power Four schools and with you being a Power Four school, you're more than likely to get more than one team. You're going to get more than one team as opposed to being a mid major or a low major, where you have to win the conference tournament to get your automatic bid. So teams to look at, you got Miami, Ohio. Miami, Ohio is 31-0, right? Miami, Ohio, they are in the Mid-American Conference. Generally, they get one bid, right? Um, I'm curious to see what happens if Miami, Ohio doesn't win their conference because generally that's the way that the team gets in. But them being 31-0, that'd be a travesty for them not to win and not to get in. I think if they don't win, they take a spot from a high major conference. My guess is the ACC to get in. But I'm gonna break it down for you. And Bong is saying shout out to Tennessee State University. That's a HBCU, yes. And Coach Nolan Smith. Yeah, shout out to Nolan Smith. Nolan Smith played at Duke, was an assistant coach at Duke while Coach K was there. Ironically, I got a chance to meet Nolan Smith on a trip to Duke with one of my sons. We went to the CP3 camp. We got a chance to tour different schools, and we got a chance to talk to. I got a chance to talk to college coaches. Nolan Smith was one, and we had a cool conversation, man. He was telling me about life at Duke and what to look for. I looked at Nolan and I looked at my son. I said, Nolan, hey man, what the hell's that? Nolan said, hey, you got to go to HBCU around here to see what. We fell out laughing, but very, very funny. But Nolan Smith, man, real cool dude. So shout out to Nolan Smith, man. Um, anyhow, getting back to this, um, looking at this though, so the teams that I think that are going to get more than one team into the tournament, I'm going to start with the A10. I think the A10 gets two teams in. You got St. Louis, who's 27-4. This is just regular season, 27-4. They finished 15-3 in conference. You got VCU, who's 24-7. They finished 15-3 in the conference. You got George Mason in that same conference, 23-8. They finished 11-7 in conference. And then you have two other teams in Dayton and St. Joe's that finished with 21 wins, 10 losses. So that's five teams in an A10 conference with more than 20 wins. Um, so I think you're gonna have to take two this year, you know. So that's my thought with that team. The ACC, I think they get six teams. The ACC is gonna get. They got like four last year. I think they're gonna get six. If Miami, Ohio wins their conference tournament, I think they'll get seven. But if Miami, Ohio does not win their conference tournament, I think they're the ones that are going to get snubbed. I think that they'll get six teams in. And my team that I think is going to get snubbed, I'm going to go one of three teams. Um, Obviously, it depends on what they do in the conference tournament. But my initial thought is SMU, Cal, or Stanford. It's going to be one of those three teams that gets snubbed in the case that Miami, Ohio does not win their conference tournament. Other teams that I think that are going to get more than one team, I think the Big 12 is going to get seven teams this year. Uh, Shout out to TCU. You know, TCU had a terrible loss in the beginning of the year to New Orleans. It was god awful. I think they were 20 or 30 point favorites in the beginning of the season at home and took an L. But they've bounced back. They've had a really good season and look for them to make it to the NCAA tournament. Um, the Big East, you're only getting four teams. Shout out to Seton Hall, man. Seton Hall was bad last year. You know, 2 years ago they won the NIT. But I think that they get in the tournament this year. The Big Ten, believe the Big Ten is going to get nine teams this year. And then the rest of the teams that don't go to that, they'll be in the crown. um, I think the SEC, you know, last year, I think they had 13 or 14 teams. Um, this year, they're going to have nine teams. So I think they get nine teams. I think the Mountain West, they had four teams last year. Um, Grand Canyon, who made it last year from a different conference, I believe they were in the WAC. They are now in the Mountain West. So they essentially have five teams that made it from the year before in the conference, but they're going to get four. So I think the Mountain West gets four. And I think the WCC, who has gotten three in the last couple of years, I think they get four this year. They get three this year, excuse me. They've had two in the last couple of years. I think they get three this year. And their third team, you know, it's the usual suspects, the Gonzaga, the St. Mary's. But this year, Santa Clara is going to get in. So, you know, shout out to them. So I know I said a bunch of numbers, but I'll tally it up for you. Okay, so out of 31 conferences, you have 23 conferences that all get one bid. So that's 23 right there, right? VCU, the A10, they have their two teams. That's 25 teams. You have the ACC, they have six teams. That's 31 teams. The Big 12 has seven teams. That's 38 teams. The Big East has four teams. That's 42. The Big 10 at nine, that's 51. The SEC at nine, that's 60. Mountain West has 4. That's 64. The WCC at 3. That's 67. And the Mid-American Conference gets 1 with Miami, Ohio at 68. Those are your 68 teams. So wrap that up for you real quick. I didn't go through quad 1 wins and all that stuff. I'm just kind of telling you the numbers and giving you a few of the schools that are actually going to get in. You know, at some point I'll get into a little bit more depth about this, but I just wanted to kind of get that overview and put that out there as everyone is, you know, getting ready for bracketology and talking about who should be in and who shouldn't be in. You know, it's going to be a mess. And there's going to be teams that people feel should not get in. I think one team that people are like, I don't know, is Louisville. Louisville got a potential top 10 player, you know, like they got over 20 wins. We want to see that player in March Madness. He's in. You know, it's unfortunate, man. I don't know if anyone's heard about Caleb Wilson. You know, Caleb Wilson, he fractured his wrist, so he had to miss some time with a fractured wrist, and he was working to come back. He came back, and in practice on a 2-on-0 break, he dunked the ball and broke his thumb. Had to get surgery. Now he's out for the season. So a real tragic situation. Freak injury, man. Prayers up for Caleb Wilson. Wishing him a speedy recovery as he, you know, goes through this process. I believe he's played his last game in North Carolina. I think he's going to the league. He should. And go from there. You know, it's funny because, you know, every year you got these players, these top 5 players that always say, I love it in college. I'm thinking about coming back another year. So, you know, at one point, I think it was Con Knipple said it and Cooper Flagg said it. But they're like, you know, the players say it every year. Well, I don't know if y'all saw the interview with Darren Peterson, but Darren Peterson just recently said, I love everything about Kansas. I love Kansas. I may come back and play another year at Kansas. So now it's Darren Peterson. So, I mean, you know, the seasons change, but the stories stay the same. These players every year, as it gets to the end, they put out this storyline that they're thinking about coming back to college and playing another year. So, yeah, pretty interesting. But you know, that's all I had. I just wanted to kind of jump in here. I was watching the WCC game. I was watching Santa Clara tonight and watching them play against Pacific. And I'm just looking at Santa Clara, man. I'm really impressed with Herb Sendek. The awards just came out for the WCC. I had a chance to kind of look at them, and I saw that he got Coach of the Year. So, you know, shout out to Herb Sendek getting that Coach of the Year. That was, you know, much deserved. I see what you're doing there. You know, you didn't beat Gonzaga this year, but you did split with St. Mary's. So I did see that. So shout out to y'all, man. You guys are going in the right direction. But yeah, watch that. I caught the tail end of the San Francisco Oregon State game. Shout out to Tyrone Riley the fourth, man. Heck of a game, man. Heck of a game. You know, I look at this and for teams that aren't going to the NCAA tournament, they may be going to the NIT, they may be going to the Crown, they may be going to the CBI, whatever tournament they go to. I now look at it and I wonder how many of these players are going to actually go to these tournaments, like whether it's the Crown or whether it's the CBI or the NIT. How many of them are going? Because you don't want to run the risk of getting hurt if you plan on hitting that transfer portal. So it becomes a sticky situation, and you essentially have to treat it like business when you're going into it. Um, Transfer portal this year opens April 7th. So I think one thing that the NCAA did a good job of is changing the time as to when the portal actually opens. In years prior, the portal has opened during the season. And that becomes tough as teams are playing in different tournaments, whether it's the NCAA tournament or other tournaments, but they're playing in these things. And, you have players that you may be interested in, and you're trying to talk to them and recruit them and court them and get them to consider your school, all while still trying to coach and go through the season. So I think that kind of gets tough, but shout out to them. They did open it up after the season, so it opens on April 7th, which is the day after the national championship. So it's like even the two teams that play in for the national championship, it's like you're back to work the next day. Um, so yeah, just shout out to them. I don't like the window. I don't like that it's a 2-week window. Um, so it opens April 7th. It closes April 21st. For people that don't know, all you have to do is get in. So it's not like when you get in the transfer portal, you have to make a decision before April 21st or you're screwed. It doesn't work like that. It's like you get into the transfer portal within that 2-week window, and then after the transfer portal closes, you're in there, and now you can continuously, talk to different coaches and set up your visits and everything else and moving forward. But yeah, 2 weeks is they're not playing. They're like, I guess they're looking at it like, look, if you want to get in. It's funny because I've talked to coaches in the past, and I've asked college coaches, when do you know when a player is going to get into the transfer portal? And one of the answers they told me was they were like, well, I won't say one of the answers. I'll say many coaches told me that they know by the beginning of January which players are going to hit the transfer portal. They already have an idea. Um, and just, that's astonishing in a sense, because it's like, to some degree, you start asking yourself, are some of these coaches forcing these players into the transfer portal? Like, because as I said, essentially they know that they're hitting that portal in December. It's like, man. So yeah, these coaches know. And you're not supposed to contact coaches and talk to coaches and all that stuff while you're with other schools, but that stuff, you know, business is taking place and all that all the time. Coaches are doing it, players are doing it. It's essentially a lot of off the record type of conversations. Um, and we see that all the time. You see the coaches are fired. Like, you got the coach from Kansas State that's fired. Um, Shout out to him, man. He's a good dude. He's a good dude, and I hope he gets every dime that they got to pay him. Um, I'm talking about Kansas State, but he's a good dude. He's a stand up dude. His name is escaping my mind right now, but um, I met and talked to that guy because my son was thinking about going there the first time he got into the portal, and he was one that spoke to us. And one thing that he said that was very, very interesting to me was he doesn't allow his players or his coaches to cuss. So if you cussing, like, you got to do push-ups. Doesn't matter if you a player or a coach. And, to hold people to standards, man, like that's impressive. In the heat of the moment, when you're competitive and you're trying to win and everything else, you know, you still have to you can still get on players without belittling him. And that's belittling them. And that's what I respected and respect about the former coach at Kansas State is, that was one of the things that he preached. Um, but yeah, you got the Kansas State job. You got who else? I believe Providence. I believe the Providence coach just lost his job. So, you got some jobs that are going to be available at in March and beginning of April, and watch how fast those jobs get filled by coaches that already have jobs right now. Like if you look and you examine the timeline of as to how long it takes to really have an interview, think it over, um, like it's not enough time. So some of these deals are already done, and it's a formality. Like we're just gonna put this out here and say that we're looking for a coach, but a lot of these places already have their candidate, already have their guy as to who they want to go there. Um, so yeah, um, that's pretty much it, man. With the basketball talk, I just wanted to jump in and just say a little something, man, based on what I saw today. So thank y'all for tuning in. It's your boy KP with two P's in a bong. And since my dude DP ain't on, you know, we gotta get them balloons popping because he's always like F them balloons. So one more time for you, DP. Get them balloons popping. It's your boy KP with two P's in a bong.